video proving that um, that we all on different pages here.
1538. Now look in the sky. Do you reckon those are flying cardinals' hats? Or are they something a little more familiar to the modern eye? Another moment in the story of Jesus Christ is depicted in this painting from 1710, painted by Ert de Gelder, the last pupil of Rembrandt. Do we believe what we are seeing? Or do our official narratives and canonical texts in the West allow us to look at these pictures, but feel the need to explain them away and not believe what we're seeing? Well, we could certainly say that Jesus did not read the Hebrew canon in a fundamentalist way. He and his apostles almost never reach for a plain reading of those texts. They would always go for mystical and esoteric interpretations, never for the plain meaning. If you look through the Gospels, count up the number of times Jesus says, "In the past you've heard this, but I say this." And when he says in the past, he means the Hebrew scriptures. Or he'll say, "Moses said this, I say this. Moses allowed you this, I say this." And so you know straight away that he is not endorsing the Mosaic teachings and laws. Far from it. He is repudiating them. Moses said this, but I say this, and then he'll say something different. So as to that layer of redaction that was done on these ancient texts, and we know there were a series of redactions where work is added to the earlier text, then it's harmonized. More is added, then it's harmonized. And there was a moment when the Pentateuch was produced and harmonized to authenticate the Mosaic law. Jesus doesn't endorse that edit. There's a moment when more scriptures are added and it's harmonized to endorse the monarchy, the priesthood, and the Yahwistic law. Jesus does not affirm that. He repudiates that edit. Now, it was so clear to the apostles and the early church that Jesus had repudiated the Mosaic law and the Yahwistic law, that when they got to Acts 15, they came to a decision of saying the laws of the Old Covenant, the laws of the Hebrew scriptures are no longer binding. They are not relevant to international Christianity moving forward. We're not bound by those teachings anymore. They came to that conclusion because in the end it was clear that Jesus had distanced himself from those writings, had repudiated them. Now, he'd said other things that did not make that immediately obvious, because he had pointed to those scriptures and said, those are the scriptures that testify to me. And so the early church felt they couldn't simply jettison the Hebrew scriptures if they are the ones that testified to Jesus. But then how do you handle them? How do you interpret them? And these early church fathers said, well, look at how Jesus and the apostles handled them. They went to them for prophetic meanings, for esoteric meanings, not to teach the plain story, and not to say that the Elohim were God. What did Jesus think about the Elohim stories? There's a moment when he says, all who came before were thieves and robbers. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. And that's a pretty good summary of what the Elohim did when they came, colonized our planet, and governed over our ancestors. And Jesus sets himself up in contrast to people who've treated humanity that way. Do Jesus's I am sayings mean that he sees himself as an expression of the I am, of Yahweh? Did Jesus regard himself as an expression of Yahweh, or as a counterpart to Yahweh? Did he believe Yahweh was God? Well, here's an intriguing moment. Jesus is encouraging people to engage with the source, to address the source of Father, and to expect the source to provide them with things. And so there's a moment in Luke and Matthew's gospel when he says, "Which of you fathers, if your child asked you for food, would give him a snake? If your children asked you for bread, would you give them serpents? Now, if you who are evil know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give good gifts to those who ask?" And the other gospel says, "How much more will your Father in heaven give the Holy Spirit to those who ask?" So he's saying, go to the source and expect good things. The source is not like a wicked father who would give serpents to children hungry and asking for food. What's he talking about? Why on earth would he come up with that image? Well, the answer is that that image comes from the Hebrew scriptures. There is a moment when the people of Israel are starving in the desert. And so they come to Moses and they say, "Please, can you get Yahweh to provide us with some food?" And instead of providing them with food, he sends serpents, fiery serpents, to go in and attack the people. It's a horrible story. The people are starving. Their children are starving. They've asked for food, and Yahweh says, "You're not going to get food. You're going to get serpents. You're going to get snakes. You're going to get dragons. And then you'll learn to worship me."
Now, if I was an ignorant mofo and didn't understand that they were asking for meat, they was asking for meat, but they was getting the angels' bread. They was getting bread from heaven. So they wasn't starving to death. They wasn't thirsting for water because Miriam's well was with them. So they wasn't starving. What they wanted is meat. And we done found out that when Yah created the earth, he never told us to eat meat. He never told us to eat meat. It is not in there. It's not in there, and people need to stop lying. That is an add-on. He just told you they redacted it. They added in scriptures. They added in more scriptures, and they added in more scriptures to get us to follow them. They have to tell you the truth. The best lie comes with the truth in it. They added and added and added and added and added.
But where did they come from? One clue can be found in the Bible, in the ancient book of Job. There's a book in the Bible called Job, and many Bible scholars believe it is the oldest piece of literature within the Bible itself. It's not the beginning of the story, but they argue that it's the oldest manuscript that found its way into the Hebrew canon. Many scholars believe it has Arabian roots. And there's a fascinating verse in that book, which I discovered when I was researching for Escaping from Eden. And it references three particular regions of space: Sirius, Orion, and the Pleiades. And the verse implies that those regions of space exercise a power dynamic over planet Earth. Now, some scholars would say the power dynamic is simply a reference to the stars in the sky and the seasons for planting and harvesting. And you could brush it off with that explanation, except there's something about those three regions of space. Sirius, Orion, Pleiades are mentioned by cultures all around the world in their ancient narratives as being the place from which our ancient visitors came. Some to nurture us, some to exploit us. Orion is there in the wisdom of the ancient Egyptians. Sirius is named by the Dogon people of Mali, West Africa, and the Pleiades by Aboriginal Australian story and Native American story. And there is a very specific connection to the story of Asherah. Where do...
Okay, so the reason I'm showing you this right now is Yah revealed something to me about the Pleiades. So Yahweh and Asherah came from the Pleiades. So Pleiades is the 7 stars. If you translate it into the Hebrew, it's the 7 stars. This is where Yahweh and Asherah came from. Now, he let you know that the Aboriginal Americans and the Aboriginal Australians are the ones who did what? They are the one who wrote these stories about the Pleiades. Now, when it comes to Orion, who was the people who talked about the Orions? The Egyptian people. Okay, do you hear that? Egyptian people. So when you go look up Orion means the fool. Orion in Paleo Hebrew means the fool. T-H-E, the fool. F-O-O-L. And then the Egyptian people, if you go look up what is Orion, other name is, guess what Orion's other name is? Isis. So Orion is Isis. Also called Sothis, S-O-T-H-I-S, S-O-P-D-E-T. And it also means the head prince Asherah. You see that? So who is she? Who is this? Who is Isis and who is Asherah? They're both the same thing. They're the queen of heaven. They're the queen of heaven. Ooh, so this is the queen of heaven that they was worshiping in Egypt. Let's find out what the Africans was worshiping. Who is that? So if you go up and you translate the word Sirius, S-I-R-I-U-S. If you translate the word Sirius into Paleo Hebrew, guess what it means? It means dog star. It's the brightest star. Who came in the New Testament? Look, if you see the brightest star in the sky, where did JC say he came from? Okay. When you translate it, because I wanted to leave this, because remember what we talked about Baal? What Baal mean? Well, guess what the name of Sirius mean? Prince Lord. Prince Lord. And what did we say a prince was? Wasn't princes angels? And the Most High y'all call you a prince, you a what? You an angel? P-R-I-N-C-E. You an angel? You an angel? And his name was Prince Lord, L-O-R-D. And what did we say Lord was? Baal. So we got Orion, who is Isis, and Asherah, and she is the mother of Cyrus, who is the Prince Lord, the dog star, and it's also called the Africans call the Dogon people, the dog people. Africans, they're the dog people of the dog star. This is Jesus' star, Baal, and they also call this the Christmas star. The Christmas star. And guess where you find this at? You can find this information in Job 9:9. Let's go read it. Job 9:9. Where is my glasses at? I just had them. You can find in Job 9:9. The reason I'm giving you this quick lesson here, because in Job 9:9, it reads, Job then spoke up and said, truly, I know that it is so. How can man be righteous with the Creator if he would want to contend with him? He would not reply even once in 1,000. He is wise of heart, immense, strong. Whoever stubbornly opposes the Creator and remained whole. It is he who uproots the mountains. People do not know. When he overturns them in his rage, who shakes the earth from its place? Its pillars tremble. Who gives the command to the sun, and it does not shine? And the seal up the stars? Who alone stretches out the heavens and treads upon the crest of the sea? Who made Ursa Minor, the Orion and the Pleiades, and the southern constellation? Who performs great deeds that are beyond comprehensions and wonders beyond numbers? That is Yah who created these things. And he created the beings in these areas too, because you remember we found out in the book of we found out in the testament of Solomon that the stars, that the fallen deities hang up around the stars. They have their place in the stars. They hang up in the stars. Now in Job 38:31. Let's start at 24. Which is the way where the light is dispersed, which the eastern sun spreads upon the land? So the sun comes up in the east. Who fasted excuse me, who fastened a channel for the torrent, or a path for the thunderclouds, that it may rain upon the land without man, and in a wilderness in which there is no person. To sat just mean satisfy, sat desolation or and wasteland, to make the vegetation sprout forth. Does rain have a father? Who begot the dewdrops? From whose belly did the ice come forth? Who gave birth to the first frost of the heaven, like a submerged stone, and the waters are concealed, the very depths are imprisoned? Do you tie up the bonds of Pleiades, or unbind the cords of Orion? So remember I was telling you about loosen Pleiades, and I was praying about that. So we need to be praying about loosen the Pleiades, and we need to be praying about binding up Orion, because we know that Orion is the fool. We know that the Pleiades is where Yah is. We know that the Sirius is where JC comes from. So we need to pray about binding up Sirius, binding up Orion. And then he says here, did you ever take out the constellations in their time and lead Ursa together with her children? Do you know the laws of heaven? Did you place the rules upon the land? So I don't know about Ursa yet. I'm gonna find out, is Ursa bad or good, but we need to pray about binding up the cords of Orion, because this is the fool. This is where the fool come from. And Sirius, Sirius, the dog star, is where Jesus come from. So we need to pray to bind these two up. We need to pray to bind up Jesus. We need to pray to bind up Orion, aka Isis, aka Asherah, aka Jesus, aka Baal. We need to pray to bind them up. Okay. So nothing change without without us asking. But this is why they hid these things from us. And where's Amos 5? Amos 5. Amos 5 and 8. Now it says here, we're gonna go up to Amos We're going to start at verse 1 because we need to understand and understand. Hear this pronouncement that I recite over you in lamentation. O house of Israel, she has fallen and will no longer rise. Version of Israel, she has been abandoned upon her soul with no one to lift her up. Remember, he said we've been abandoned upon our soul. We own our soul. We own our soul. For thus says the Creator Yah, the city from which thousands peoples go forth will be left with hundreds, and one from which 100 people go forth will be left with 10 in the house of Israel. You see that? We're gonna be downsized. For thus says the Most High Yah to the house of Israel, seek me and live. Do not seek Bethel. It is separated here in my book. Beth E-L. B-E-T-H-E-L. We know that Beth we know that's and I need to look that up. We know that's a deity. We know that Bethel is a deity. See, this is what happens when you Bethel, because it's separated. It's separated. El, and we know that El is the El Elyon children. And it says, do not go to Gilgal and do not travel to Beersheba. Now, Beersheba in my book is B-E-E-R dash S-E-E-A-S-H-E-B-A. Okay, so for the Most High Yah, I'm sorry, let me go back. Do not seek Bethel, and do not go to Gilgal, and do not traverse Beersheba, for Gilgal will be completely exited, and Bethel will become nothingness. Wow. Let's write down Gilgal. I'm going to read that again. Did y'all hear what I just heard? For thus says the Creator Yah to the house of Israel, seek me and live. Do not seek Bethel, and do not go to Gilgal, and do not traverse Beersheba, for Gilgal will be completely exited. No, I'm sorry, exile. Exile. I thought that was a T. Exile. And Bethel will become nothingness. Exile. Gilgal will become exile. We finna go look up the Paleo Hebrew word for this. Because exiled, and then Bethel will become nothingness. So let's go see what the nothingness is. Let's see what the actual word in the Paleo Hebrew is. Then it says here, seek the Most High Yah and live, lest he burn through the house of Joseph like a fire and consume Bethel with non-existence. It's with none extinguishing it. Oh, you who turn justice into wormwood and lay righteousness upon the ground. He is the one who made Pleiades and Orion, who turns blackness into morning and darkness into day and to night, who summons the waters of the sea and the powers upon the face of the earth. The Creator Yah is his name. He is the one who grants a rod one power over the mighty. Remember, we went over this before. A rod one is us. We is the children of Israel. We were robbed. And a rod one will prevail over a what? Fortress. Why? Because we will be calling in the name of the Creator Yah, and we will prevail over the fortress. So let me pause this and let me look up these things right here. Well, no, let me let this guy finish talking real quick, and then we'll look this up. This is going to be longer than what I thought.
The figures of Yahweh and Asherah figure in this great panoply. So I've mentioned that there's this great spectrum of paleo contact experiences, some positive, some less so. When we get to 2 Kings and the writings of Jeremiah in the Bible, we're told that the memory of the Jewish people of the 7th and 8th century BCE, the memory of Yahweh was negative. It says they spoke disparagingly of him, they disrespected him, and they disregarded his laws. They rejected his tradition. But they remembered Asherah positively. So much so that on every high hill and under every green tree, there would be installations to commemorate and
remember, we just told you that Asherah trees or Asherah poles, and there's Asherah trees and Asherah poles. Christmas tree is the Asherah tree, aka Jesus tree, and the poles, you know, those obelisks that you find all over the world, that in the United States and across all these other pagan places, those are Asherah trees. Those are, or it's poles. Basically, it's a you know those big poles that they have down there round by the White House. That's what that is. Okay.
Give thanks to Asherah for her involvement in the human story. And so I think when we put Asherah and Yahweh alongside each other, which has occurred in some ancient carvings, what we're looking at is the two poles of paleo-contact. Asherah is the positive nurturer. Yahweh is the lawgiver, the dominator, the controller. And it's interesting that the biblical writers tell us that Asherah is remembered with affection and Yahweh was being rejected because of what the ancient Hebrew people remembered about what life was like under the rulership of Yahweh. So I think they belong together. When you see them together, they are representing the two poles of this very diverse experience of ancient ET contact. Among the possible locations for the origins of Asherah, one in particular is hinted at by the naos uncovered at Tel El-Farah. Carved into the naos itself is a crescent moon and a cluster of stars. The conventional explanation is that Asherah was worshipped at times of harvest festival, and the crescent moon and the stars represent a kind of calendar.
So she's the one that brought in the moon worshiping, y'all. We're not supposed to be doing that.
Identifying the time of year when these celebrations should occur. So one interpretation of the crescent moon and the stars is that we're being given a date, that what we're looking at is a calendar, and the crescent moon represents a new moon, and those stars represent a particular time in the year. And so when that constellation appears in a particular place in the night sky at the new moon, that's the time of festival.
Do you support Israel and the Jewish people? Now more than ever, Israel needs committed friends around the world.
In a particular place in the night sky, the time of festival. And so the conventional explanation is that the naos says here was a temple to Asherah, and then in this engraving, well, that time of year when these celebrations should occur. So one interpretation of the crescent. So I think they belong together. When you see them together, they are representing the two poles.
I just brought it back again so the people can see that the moons are Asherah worship.
Of this very diverse experience of ancient ET contact. Among the possible locations for the origins of Asherah, one in particular is hinted at by the naos uncovered at Tel El-Farah. Carved into the naos itself is a crescent moon and a cluster of stars. The conventional explanation is that Asherah was worshipped at times of harvest festival, and the crescent moon and the stars represent a kind of calendar, identifying the time of year when these celebrations should occur. So one interpretation of the crescent moon and the stars is that we're being given a date, that what we're looking at is a calendar, And the crescent moon represents a new moon, and those stars represent a particular time in the year. And so when that constellation appears in a particular place in the night sky at the new moon, that's the time of festival. And so the conventional explanation is that the Naus says, here was a temple to Asherah, and then in this engraving, well, that's the time of year when we have our big Asherah festival. Now, all that might be perfectly correct, but I'm going to suggest there's another layer to that symbology, because symbology is a language of many layers, and a symbol can carry different meanings at different times and in different places. When I was first ordained, I worked in a very high church Anglo-Catholic parish. If you went into one of our services, one of our masses, you would think you were in a Roman Catholic church. It was that traditional. And so we had rituals, we performed ceremonies, we had processions, we wore vestments, which I was told all carried a Christian meaning. And indeed they did. But they happened to carry other meanings as well. An ancient Jewish visitor would come, see our reserved sacrament, and say, oh, I see that you practice the ritual of the showbread, just as we do in the Jerusalem temple. He'd look at me in all my garb, layers and layers of vestments, and he'd say, oh, I can see you're part of the high priesthood of Jerusalem because you're wearing all the same garb. An ancient Roman would observe our processions and say, oh, I can understand all the statements about power and compliance that you're making here. Or someone from ancient Babylon would watch our bishop arrive in purple and say, oh, I can see he's in charge because he's wearing the royal purple chosen by King Cyrus of Persia. And so what we were doing was full of symbology of at least 4 layers. So there was a Christian meaning, but there was also a Jewish meaning, and a Roman meaning, and a Babylonian meaning. And so I think it's quite legitimate to look at that symbology on the Naus from Tel al-Farah and ask, what does that symbology mean in the language of the source culture from ancient Sumeria? It gives a different meaning. In the symbology of ancient Sumeria, that crescent moon is really the stylized horns of a bull, and it refers to a constellation, the bull constellation, Taurus. And that group of stars sit by the shoulder of the Taurus constellation. They are the stars of the Pleiades. So I would argue that this Naus is telling us a great deal about Asherah. Firstly, this is where she came. The standing stones tell us Tel al-Farah was a place of ancient contact, of first contact for the local peoples. She arrived through a portal from, and here's a star map, the Taurus constellation near the shoulder from the stars of the Pleiades. Asherah came from a planet which orbited one of the stars of the Pleiades. I would argue that's the information carried by that Naus and that star map. Now, some might say, well, Paul, that's a stretch, that's one possible reading, and it might be easy to brush off were it not for the fact that so many cultures say that our female tutors in agronomy came in the deep past from the Pleiades. Listen to stories from the Cherokee people. Listen to stories from Aboriginal Australian people. And the Pleiades crops up again and again as the place from which our learning came in our deep past, which enabled us to make the great leap forward. Tel al-Farah is such a fascinating site because before we get into the details of the Naus and what it is telling us, we have to identify standing stones that were in that place. And standing stones all around the world.
That's the Asherah. They're going to be standing stones like this. They're going to be trees, decorated trees. She's actually the queen of heaven. Asherah is the queen of heaven. And which they was worshiping her. We know about that in Jeremiah, that they was worshiping her in Jeremiah. Remember, that was the Judean Canaanite Judeans who was doing that. That was not our people. That was not our people. That was the Canaanite Judeans that was doing that. So we need to understand and understand who's doing what. Okay? So when you understand and understand that, and they had ran us off, which if we had done what we supposed to in the first place, none of this would be happening. So, but y'all was just testing us to see what we're gonna do and how we're gonna do it.
World were our ancestors' language for marking a place of paleo contact.
Because while I was sitting here, do you y'all got to know that this is y'all downloading this information to me, right? Let me show you what I just found. It just need to stay right there. I'm finna read to you what I just found. Now, I just read from you over in Amos 5, y'all. In Amos, what it says in Amos 5 about the nothingness of Bethel and Gilgal being exiled. It was perfect that this pulled up. Let me show you what it says about this. Oh, hallelujah. Hallelujah. Okay, so we're going to the original language. What does it say in the original language? Not what they said. You see Bethel, you don't see nothing. You think that's nothing. You see Gilgal, you see that. You don't think that's nothing. I'm finna show you what Gilgal is. I'm finna show you what Gilgal is. I'm finna show you what Gilgal is, baby. I'm finna show you what Gilgal is. Woo, hallelujah. Y'all, praises to the creator, y'all. Him alone. Woo, okay. So let's go translate this. This is what this about. Like the Most High, y'all need y'all to understand and understand this stuff in the original language. So, based on the Stone Egyptian art scroll, the related rabbinic commentary, the prophecy in Amos 5 and 5, for Gilgal will surely go into exile, and Bethel will come to nothing. Bethel, remember El, that is El Elyon. And Gilgal, let's go see what Gilgal and Bethel mean. Reflects a divine judgment on the northern kingdom corrupt worship centers. The corrupt worship, look what you're seeing right there. So when y'all see them stone buildings like this, we know what that is now. We know what that is now. I'm showing you, ooh, hallelujah. I'm sorry I get excited when the Most High y'all pour into me. Woo! The Paleo-Hebrew, ancient Hebrew context underscores a shift in the meaning of these names, transforming them from holy sites into symbols of futility and eventually desolation. Beth-El means from the house of God. And we know that when they talking about El, we're not talking about the Creator Yah. It's talking about El Elyon. The house of El is going to go to nothingness. Amos 5 and 5. The Paleo literal meaning of Bethel translates to the house of God. The house of God. Drell, the house of God. Let's keep going. The transformation, because King Jeroboam established a golden calf cult there. The stone edition and the prophetic tradition often equate it as Beth Avim. Beth Avim, Beth-Aven, which translates to the house of nothingness or the house of idols. Woo, that's a church house for idols. That's a church house for idols. Bethel's is a church house for idols. Don't y'all ever see some churches named Bethel? Significance in the prophecy, Bethel will come to nothing, emphasizing that because the people turn to the house of God, and the house of God, a house of idolatry, God will render it utterly useless and empty, reducing the house site to complete nothingness. Now, let's go find out what Gilgal means. Gilgal, from circle memorial to exile. It's a circle memorial. It's a circle memorial. You're looking at it right there. The paleo literal meaning of Gilgal stems from the root galal, meaning to roll or a stone circle, y'all. It was the site of the first encampment of the Canaanites, baby. I told you this is Canaanite worship, where Joshua set up 12 stones from the Jordan to commemorate the crossings. The Canaanites set up this. Hold on, let's keep going. How many stones is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I don't know. I think that's 13, y'all. I just counted on there. But let's keep going. The transformation. The prophetic wordplay against Gilgal uses the same root. Gilgal will surely go in exile. Gola Yah Lay, Galohyyigle. Significance: this place that symbolized the beginning of the Hebrew people's inheritance and the rolling away of, rolling away of the reproach of Egypt. Joshua 5:9 would become a place of rolling away of exile for the people themselves due to their idolatrous worship. In the context of the stone addition to notch. So when you see that, now you know what that is. The reproach of idolatry. Amos 5:5 warned against seeking these places, Bethel and Gilgal and Beersheba. Because, did I look up Beersheba? No, I didn't look Beersheba. Hold on, let me add Beersheba in there. Forgot to add Beersheba in there. It looks like the word beer, y'all. It literally looks like the word beer and the word Sheba put together. I forgot to put Sheba in there. So Bethel, we know that's the house of Gadriel. Now we know that Gilgal, that's a wheel circle. What is this right here? This is a wheel circle right here. Let's look up. And this is, I didn't even know this guy was about to do this because I didn't watch the whole video. I only watched a portion of it. Beersheba, well of 7 oath. Well of 7. Now what we just got through talking about? What did we just get through talking about? What the Pleiades is. What the Pleiades is. Isn't that the 7-star constellation? Bear, B-E-E-R, well, and Shiva, 7-0. It refers to a site of covenants made by Abraham and Isaac. Genesis 21 through 20 and 26. Significance in Amos. Although Beersheba was technically in the South Kingdom, it was a popular pilgrimage destination for the northern Israelites. Judas, the southern kingdom. It was a popular destination for the northern Israelites who traveled far to worship at the shrines that had become corrupt. Exile is the warning: do not cross over to Beersheba, indicates that the covenant promise, the oath, had been broken, and the safety once found there was gone. The summary: 5:5 instructs Israel to seek me, the Creator Yah, and live, rather than seeking deeds which have become the center of vanity. This message is that the holy sites Bethel, historical landmark Gilgal, and the place of the covenant Beersheba hold no value if the people are practicing idolatry. Those places will be reduced to nothing in the emptiness of their people. Now, do you understand? When you see this now, what is that? What is that? What is that? Joshua put these up. This is an Israelite site that they turned it into something wicked. We just talked about the 7 oaths. The 7 oaths and the Beersheba. Where we just talked about the Pleiades stars and the 7 stars. Where Yah came from. He made 7 promises to him. He made 7 promises to him. We just talked about the fool of Orion. That is, girl, if you don't be quiet. Hey, cut that noise out. Cut it out. Be quiet. Let me finish my video real quick. Now we saw that the Egyptians Shut up! Now stop it. Egyptian people, ISIS. And we know that Isis is the Orient. She came from the Orient. She is the mother of Baal. And Baal is who came out of Sirius, the dog star, the prince, the Lord. We know that is Baal. And we know that they turned the good things of Israel, which is Bethel, Gilgal, and Beersheba, into places of worship that went against the Creator Yah. They put idols there. They added in idol worship there. Okay? So I'm sorry about yelling at the dog, but she gotta be quiet. I got neighbors. So let me see, was there anything else I needed to add to this? I wish I could take a picture of this. Hold on. Let's see, can I do it? So there that is right there. So you can see the information that I just gave you. And now that you see the information I just gave you about that. No, let me take a picture of this other thing. Hold on. So there it is, the list. Maybe I should have colored it for you, so you can see the difference. The Pleiades, the 7-star. And I was talking to somebody else, and y'all was showing me that he brought us from the Pleiades. He brought us from the Pleiades star system. That's where we came from. So he was showing me that. So I just wanted y'all to be able to see that. I'm going to show you. I'm going to take a picture of the highlighted one. All right. So there that is right there. So let me see. Is there anything else I need to add to this? Let me think about it for a second before I post this. Okay, I looked up Ursa Major because that's in there too. So I looked up Ursa, and it means Latin for bear, not a Hebrew word. However, the concept of the constellation Ursa Major, the Great Bear, appears in the Hebrew Bible, Job 9:9, 38 and 32, as Ash, or Yish, I guess. In the context of ancient Hebrew astronomy, the Paleo-Hebrew perspective, this constellation is understood as the following. Ish Ash, this is translated as the bear, the Bearing Standard Bible, and other translations. It refers, in the Bearing Standard Bible, it refers to the constellation known as the modern Australia as Ursa Major, the bear with its cubs. Who put the bear with its cubs? That's what I said, I believe. He refers to the bear with its cubs, which is widely interpreted as mean Ursa Major, the Great Bear, and the constellation of Ursa Minor, the Lesser Bear. The contextual meaning mention of Ash in Job represents the Creator's control over the cosmos and the precise order movement of the heavens, often contrasts with human limitation. Alternative interpretations, some interpretations, particularly within the Gospel of the Stars theory, suggest Ash represents a sheepfold, a gathering place in an ancient pre-Babylonian Hebrew tradition. In summary, the closest Paleo-Hebrew equivalent to Ursa Minor is Ash, representing the Great Bear constellation. So he was telling him who put Ursa Minor, who made the Orion, who made the who made the Pleiades. I'm the one that put the Pleiades. Who gave the sun? Who put the sun? Who did this? Who did that? Who did all this? It was Yah. Yah did it. So okay, but we were all together at one place. Let me show you this. Hold on. I know what else I need to show you. Okay, so the concept that also existed in the heavens before the earthly lives were created alongside the angels, supported by several ancient texts and specific translations. These sources describe a treasury of souls, or a pre-mortal state where the plan for every individual was established by the Creator Yah from the beginning. Biblical and Tanakh foundations. Stone editions tonight, Ezekiel 18:4. Behold, all the souls are mine. The souls of the Father and the souls of the sons are mine. The verse is often cited to establish the Creator Yah's ownership and original creation of all individual souls. The Septuagint and the Sefer, Jeremiah 1:5. Before I formed you in the belly, I knew you. Before you came forth out of the womb, I sanctified you. This indicates a divine recognition, existence of the persons prior to physical formation. Psalms 139:16, Stone edition and the Sefer. Your eyes saw my unformed substance, and in your book they were all written, the days that were fashioned for me, when as yet there was none of them. Apocrypha and the Deuterocanonical books. Second Enoch, Slavic Enoch 23:5. All souls are prepared for eternity before the formation of the world. Wisdom of Solomon 8:19-20. For I was a witty child and had a good spirit. Ye rather be good. I came into a body undefiled. Second Baruch, Sirach, Apocalypse of Baruch 21:6 and 23:4-5. These passages explain that the end of the world cannot come until the number of souls appointed to be born has been fulfilled from the place where they are kept. Jubilees 1:24 and 26 describes the souls of the children of Israel cleaving to the Creator Yah and being known by every angel and every spirit as his children from the beginning. Sirach, Ecclesiastes 1:4. Wisdom hath been created before all things, and in the understanding of prudence from everlasting. While often applied to wisdom, some traditions link the primary creation to the souls of the righteous. No, wisdom is our mother. You find that in Proverbs. Dead Sea Scrolls, Manual of Disciples. From the Creator of knowledge comes all that is and shall be. Before ever there existed, he established the whole design, and when he ordained for them, they came into being. They fulfilled their work. Thanksgiving hymns contains numerous references to the spirits of men being ordained and given their portion in the lots of the angel before their birth. Sumerian and the ancient text. Elish, Sumerian creation myths. In Sumerian cosmetics, the destiny, Nam, of all things included the breath of life for humans was decreed by the gods in the heavens assembly, the Anunnaki, the heavenly assembly, y'all, and during the initial creative acts. Genesis Apocryphon, Dead Sea Scrolls provided expand narrative of the patriarchs like Enoch and Noah, witnessing the heavenly orange of souls and the pre-mortal council of the holy ones. I want to know about this right here. Pause it, because I can't let it go up to an hour. The Genesis Apocryphon, an Aramaic Dead Sea Scroll from Qumran Cave 1, provides an expanded first-person narrative of Lamech, Noah, and Abraham. It elaborates on the patriarchal encounters with the divine. Enochic revelation regarding Noah's birth and Abraham's wisdom often highlights Enoch's journey and interacted with the holy ones. Expansive evidence, the birth of Noah and Enoch knowledge. The text contains a detailed dramatic account of Lamech fearing his wife Besnush conceived Noah with a watcher due to the child's supernatural brightness. Text evidence, Lamech recalls that I thought in my heart that conception was due to the watchers, for my son had been conceived not by me, but by the watchers. Enoch, Lamech sends his father Methuselah to Enoch to know everything with certain, because Enoch is close with the holy ones. Okay, Abraham and Enoch's wisdom. Abraham tells how he was taught. and how he taught others by reading from the books of the words of Enoch. The text evidence Abraham tells Egyptian scholars, I read to them the books of the words of Enoch, highlighting the transition where patriarchs assess heavenly wisdom directly. The patriarchs and the holy ones. The text frequently references that Enoch had his lot with the holy ones who revealed everything to him, showing Enoch as a mediator of the heavenly knowledge regarding the fate of humanity, which directly related to the premortal understanding of the flood and Noah's purpose. The narratives serve as an amplified authority of the patriarchs and connected them directly to the heavenly revelations, similar to the themes in the book of Enoch and Jubilees. That's all they gave me. I wanted those specific verses, though. The Genesis Apocrypha. We're gonna have to do a class about the Genesis Apocrypha. I read some of it. I didn't read all of it. But we're gonna have to go over the Genesis Apocrypha. I'm gonna have to go over that with you. But it'll show you that that Sarah was queen. She was not to be messed with. She was not to be played with. Sarah was the queen. She was the princess. She was full-blooded. She didn't have nothing. She was full-blooded, original. She had all strands of DNA that was perfect. She was perfect. And y'all wanted her DNA to make the Israelites because she was perfect. Okay? And but let's give y'all the praise and all the glory for learning this information that we learned today. So now that this whole class today was about learning about where these things came from. So we now know that the Orion is where Isis came from. We know that Cyrus is where JC came from, the dog star, the Prince Lord. And we also know that the 7 stars, the Pleiades, the 7 promises, that is where Yahweh came from. So let's give all y'all the praise and all the glory and all the esteem. Hallelujah. Woo!